All righty. Now we're going to the countdown. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here this night. I love this podcast. This podcast is basically called Transformative Shifts, and this is a show where we actually show people or we interview or speak with people who have went through certain situations, whether it was trauma or something that just basically changed their lives. Either they're in the process of being healed from it and we get to witness or support them in their healing process, or they're on the other side and they want to help you get through it by basically letting you know their testimony and how they recovered. So, again, this is Transformative Shifts. We have a great show this evening. This show this evening has this man of God by the name of Mr. Patrick Lewis. Patrick Lewis is a author who has wrote a book called The Fight of My Life. Now, at this time, again, my name is Shayna Asby, the Family Life Coach. I'm coming to you again with Transformative Shifts, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you, Shana, for having me on Transitional Shifts on tonight. My name is Patrick Lewis. I'm a author from the Shreveport, Louisiana area. I'm 44. Not only am I an author, I coached high school basketball in the area. Had the pleasure of not only helping young men on the court but off the court get through this game called life. Looking to do some motivational speaking and looking to do some other things business wise as far as helping the elderly and helping our young people. And my message is I want no matter what you're going through, I want you to continue to stay in the fight. Because if you stay in the fight, you're gonna win.
Awesome. If you stay in the fight, you're gonna win. I love that. That just need to be a tagline like all the time for everybody, right? If you stay in the fight, you're gonna win. Now, when we talk about the fight, I know for sure the title of your book is called The Fight of My Life. When you hear The Fight of My Life, can you basically expound on what that means to you?
Of course, in this life that we go through, things are gonna happen to you. Whether they're financial, a struggle in a marriage, a workplace, whether it be spiritual. Your fight may not be my fight, but it's still a fight. The thing is, you have to know how to navigate through the fight. You have to know when to move. You have to know when to punch. You have to do all of that. So yes, and with me, I just so happen to be in four fights in one. Four, and it was crazy.
I
It
like that
felt
you.
like
Mhm.
it felt like when you were a kid and you might have been getting jumped on the playground or something like that. That's what it felt like.
So basically, you had to go through four fights in one. Um,
Yes,
I heard you when you said you had to learn how to navigate through those fights. Of course, that every time we see a fighter or a boxer, they have their fighting techniques. They know when to duck, they know when to dodge, they know when to move in, fall back. So I like that. I like that. So when you said it was four fights in one, what do you mean by that? Is all of this story in your book to come or in that
it
book
is.
that you have written?
It is. It is. It is in this book right here. Yes, it is in this book right here. I
Wow.
went through a physical fight in my health. I went through a workplace battle. I went through some spiritual issues. And I was also dealing with marital issues.
Wow. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that's going through that today and they don't know how to get through it. What was one of the most, I know everything is in the book, but can you give us a piece of something that you went through and there might be other people that be going, might be going through the same thing. What would you give them in order to fight?
I will tell you this: tune out all of the white noise. And chapter one in the book is entitled Mind Games. In any fight, you always have to deal with the mind games. I I was taught to box by a world champion boxer, and you always have that pre-fight hype where the other boxers always gonna talk trash about you, how they gonna do this to you, how they gonna do that to you. Well, life is the same way, and even in a spiritual battle, it's the same way. The enemy will come and throw all sorts of obstacles in your way to get your focus off of the fight, but you have to stay focused in the fight. If you're not focused, you could get hit from all sorts of angles, but you have to have your focus. You got to tune out all of the noise, all of the mind games, and keep your head focused on your opponent. Because if not, you're not going to have the outcome that you want to have. So I would say that it's the mind games, and they're gonna come.
Okay, and I definitely agree with that. You definitely have to stay focused on, what you're doing because mind games, the mind, let me tell you, they say the devil, the first thing he do is want to come and steal and kill and destroy, but he wants to take the mind. Mind games is serious. That's definitely dealing with mental health, and that leads to a lot of different other things as well. So what was it that you had to fight through to get to that point of understanding what you're helping people with as far as this book?
Oh my God. Ooh, where do I begin? Is the question. And I not only fighting through the mind games, but I just had to tell myself that there is an expected end to all of this. When you're going through some things, you like, Lord, do you even hear me? But a lot of times we go through things not only for us, but it's to shape us and to mold us into where we're supposed to be. The thing is, you just gotta stay in the process. Sometimes it's hard. Oh, I'm not telling you it's easy. It gets real hard sometimes, but I promise you, if you stay the course, you're gonna win. But the thing is, stay in the course.
Stay in the course. We definitely need to stay the course on different things. So, what would you say? So, out of you said it was a physical issue, there was a workplace, spiritual, and a marriage. If somebody was to reach out to you and they look at this podcast and they want to find out more about the book, when it comes to the physical altercation, the workplace situation, or the spiritual or the marriage, which one would you like to talk about most? Can you give us an explanation of a little bit of a sneak peek of what happened so somebody can relate to you in this podcast?
Okay. I want to talk to it from a spiritual aspect first. Okay. So I don't know how many of your viewers have ever dealt with spiritual warfare, but I knew that I was the minute that I switched churches and I started gaining more knowledge in that area is when I really got tested. So I'll never forget one night I had this is my second time having one. It was like an out of body experience. I could see myself and my wife at the time asleep, and I was being held by a couple of Satan's henchmen, and he was sitting in a chair in our room and told me these words: I've been trying to kill you. Now, let me tell you how this is going to go. I'm going to kill your marriage, I'm going to kill your ministry, and then I'm going to kill you. I started quoting scriptures, and I heard this screech that I couldn't even replicate in 15, 20, 50 years. And the more I said, Jesus is Lord, Jesus is Lord, they let out a screech. And then I started fighting. So by this time, I'm fighting. I still saying Jesus is Lord, but I'm back in my body. And lights come on, and my wife began to shake me, and she said, "Baby, baby, baby, what's up?" And I'm sitting on the side of the bed in a cold sweat. I grab a bottle of water. I look at her. I said, "You wouldn't even believe me if I told you." But that was the first part of the mind game.
Wow. So you're saying that you had a dream that Satan was with his henchmen You were
Hmm.
having an out of body experience.
That's
You were
right.
looking down at the bed
Hmm.
and you were being held by his henchman and he was telling you what he was going to do to you.
That's right.
Okay, see, you done crossed over to a whole
Hey,
mm.
I
A whole
couldn't make
nother realm.
I couldn't make this up in 3 lifetimes.
Mm. Like that had to be a scary dream right there. Like you know how they talk about a scary dream? That is definitely a scary dream, and I don't think that a lot of people would even survived the dream because you would think that that would give a lot of people a heart attack.
I'm gonna tell you what. You remember? You ever had those dreams where something's happened to you in your dream and you can't scream?
Yeah.
Worse than that.
Mm. 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 Wow. 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 So after you had this dream, how did it reshape you? Like, what were you thinking when you woke from that dream?
I didn't know what to think at first, but I had to sit there. I had to sit there for about an hour and process everything that just happened. And I thought about it. And matter of fact, after sitting, I couldn't go back to sleep. Mind you,
I
I have
bl-
to be at work at 6 a.m.
Right.
And so I got no sleep. So I went to work thinking about everything that's going on. So it wasn't about this is then everything started to happen about 2 weeks after this. So apparently I had a couple of coworkers that got sick and nobody knew what was going on at first. So apparently some of them had contracted like TB or something like that. Yeah, it was
Wow.
TB. And they had everybody in the shop at that time tested. Well, I tested negative. Okay, no problem. So we thought. But later on and during the year, I want to say around July, I started feeling horrible. Like, why do I feel this way? I just feel horrible. So my wife at the time and I were out at dinner and she kept noticing me wince. And I said, I don't feel good. And the right before our food came, I said, take me to the hospital now. I just feel horrible. And she said, are you sure? I said, look, get me to the hospital. She takes me to the emergency room. They do all the little vital stuff. And so then they do an x ray. They come back in and they say, we got to admit you to the hospital. We found a spot near your lung and we don't know what this is. So automatically, I'm like, what the world is going on? So earlier that week, we had Bible study and I'm crying out to God. I'm like, God, do you even hear me sometimes? I'm like, what's going on? So these people are getting me admitted to the hospital. Wife went home to go get me a bag of clothes or whatever so I could change or whatever. Because we thinking, okay, I might be in a couple of days. I ended up staying in the hospital like 4.5 days. And when the nurse went out, she said, just try to relax. Plain as day. I heard the Holy Spirit say, I hear you. Now do you hear me?
Wow. Wow. So this was after the dream.
Yes. This was like a few months after the dream.
Wow. So a few months
Hmm.
after the dream, they found a spot on your lungs.
Hmm.
You're in the hospital.
Hmm.
Now, when the Holy Spirit said, "You hear I hear you, but do you hear me?"
Do
What
you
was
hear
your
me?
first instant reaction? Was it like, "Oh my God, have I been acting out of disobedience? Oh my God, what have I not been
All of that.
walking this straight?" Right.
All of that. The first thing I thought was, okay, you got something for me to do, don't you? Yeah. And I know everything that I was going through was shaping me and molding me for where he was going to bring me to later on, but I had to go through a process. But I was like, so I stayed in the hospital like 4.5 days, going through all these tests, being poked, prodded, all of this. Doctors couldn't tell me nothing. So I get a bill, hospital bill, To tell me nothing, they couldn't find out what was wrong with me, but yet they tried to charge me $17,000 to tell me they didn't know what was wrong. But luckily, the insurance said, "Nah, we ain't doing that." So I'm on vacation. I needed to go clear my head. So I go down to Miami to try to clear my head of everything that's going on. By the time I come back, I started to get new revelation on some things. And I heard plain as day, this is gearing you up for a fight. Just relax. You going just trust me. You're gonna be okay. So my whole mindset started changing. But the
Mm.
whole time I was getting sicker, not knowing what was going on. So as the months passed by, I'm sick on the job, not knowing it. I can't sleep in my bed. The only relief that I could get is I slept in the garden tub in the hottest water I can stand with the jets turned on. This is the only place I could sleep. I was in pain from my neck to my feet,
Oh wow. From your neck to your feet, a
from my
spot on
neck
your
to my
lungs.
feet.
So you went from a spot on your
Yes,
lungs. Wait a minute, no, let's start at the beginning. You went from the
yes,
dream, because that dream
to from
scared
the
me.
dream. Yes,
From
it
the
scared
dream,
me.
right?
Yeah.
From the dream to the spot on your lungs.
Hmm.
You going to the hospital and they not knowing what's wrong with you.
They couldn't
Then
tell me
you're
what
you're
was wrong.
right. You're feeling pain from your from
Neck to
from
my feet.
from your neck to your feet, not
Hmm.
knowing what it is, and the only comfort that you can have is sitting in the hot tub of hot water with
Hmm.
the jet streams, with the jet.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
the only
goodness,
way I could sleep. That's the only way I could sleep.
that's the only way you can
And
sleep.
so I'm going to work. I'm popping. I'm eating ibuprofen like Tic Tacs. And so finally, I went to get an MRI. And
Okay.
bless God, my cousin was the one that did the MRI. And he said, "Bro, there's a neurosurgeon in the city that's one of the best in the region, probably one of the best in the country. Get your primary to get you over to him."
Mm.
And normally, this guy had like a 6 month waiting, thing to get in. God worked it so I got in within a week. 1 week, I was in. So I get to him, and he says, "Mr. Lewis," he said, "it would be great if I had an MRI on you." I said, "Well, you do. I have a disc on me right now." He said, "Thank you." He pops the disc in, he looks at it immediately, and he saw the problem. I had a tumor sitting on my L2 disc the size of a grapefruit, a tumor.
Okay. So it was a tumor all along.
It moved. Yeah, and it was sitting on my L2 disc,
Mm.
and it was the size of a grapefruit.
Oh wow.
And he
Okay. So
said,
right. Go
"Go
ahead.
ahead, what were you about to say?"
I was gonna
And
say
he
what was the
said,
next steps?
so he said, yeah. He called his nurse in. He said, "Get him the FMLA paperwork. You ain't going back to work. We taking that out." So I saw him on a Monday. That next Monday, November the 12th of 2012, he was taking it out.
Woo. Woo. Oh my God. Where was your faith at when this was happening?
Being strengthened and being tested all at the same time.
So were you scared? Did you have fear? Were you thinking about, were you referring back to that dream that you had?
All of it.
Oh,
All of it. All of it.
wow.
All
Wow.
of it.
Wow. Wow. Were you, did this bring you closer to God? Did you have now have talks
I
on him?
had I had never gotten that closer to him ever.
Mm.
During that time, I think I read more. I think I prayed more, and I could see the change within myself.
Wow. So that part right there, even when you said so you it brought you closer to God, do you feel like that it was a place that God was trying to get you to that you weren't there
Oh,
as of
most,
yet?
most definitely, most definitely. And that's what, well, that's what all of us. But with me, he really had to grow me up, and he had to get me in a place to where he had my total attention. With everything that went on, it was like God was saying to me, "Now that I have your attention,
Mm. Sound like a new
will
book.
you listen?"
That sound like a good
Exactly.
book title.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Sound like a good book title. Now that I have your attention. I really believe that God is trying to get a lot of us, especially in the Christianity faith, um, get our attention. And He's been taking us away from other people, taking us away from distraction,
That's right.
um, getting us, telling us that we need to consecrate ourselves even the more, turning off TV, turning off distraction. And it's just a shame that we have to get to that place that it almost take our life out in order to get our attention.
You're right.
And trauma, they say that in the word that trauma does it. Trauma does something to you. It reshapes you, it rebuilds you, it remolds you. But at the same time, the Bible says, I hear people in the church, they used to always say cliche, and I'm not even sure if it's in the Bible when he says he chastens the one he loves. But there are places in the Bible that definitely says that, he chastens us. So that means that he gives us grace, but he also comes after us to get our attention. But like I said, to get to a point where a traumatic experience has to happen, and I don't believe that our mindset is even in that place when a trauma happens. We're not thinking like, "Oh my God, let me get realigned." It's, "Oh my God, I just went through this trauma and I'm fighting for my life, and right now I need to be fighting for my life spiritually by speaking to God." S- It's deep like that. So
Very deep.
you know, and a lot of times I feel like some traumatic things happen because one, we were disobedient, or two, what I'm saying, we weren't where God wanted us to be. So he had to cause other things to happen so there would be a shift so we can go in the direction that we're supposed to go.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he'll allow a little bit of heartbreak, allow you to go through a little bit of trauma. Because how can you tell somebody else that God is a healer, God is a restorer, God is a peace giver, if you ain't ever had your peace upset, you ain't never had chaos, if you ain't never been sick,
Ooh.
how can you?
Ooh. Look, I'm looking at myself like, I don't know. I say that because in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, some of the traumatic experiences that I have experienced in myself were traumatic. And I don't believe
Yes.
every time somebody hear about it, they like, I do not think that I would have been able to go through that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
a lot of people don't believe that they would have been able to be healed from it. But I can say this. There were times, and I said this on this show before, first of all, trauma is and grief, like they almost like walk hand in hand, they almost walk
Oh,
together because
of
the,
course.
the stages that you go through with grief will be the same stages that you go through with trauma. So that means that we go through those different stages, where it comes from. The stages that you go through,
Mhm.
where they say one of them is acceptance, one of them is bargaining, no,
Yeah.
not me.
Oh yeah.
Why it's so many different levels of grief, but the same thing comes with trauma. It's like
Hmm.
you're in shock, you can't believe that this happened, and then you just go through the different process and different steps.
Right.
But the getting over part, like there's been times where I've went through traumatic experiences and I've sat there for a whole year still trying to heal from the trauma that has happened. And again, this is psychologically too. And
Hmm.
it's one thing for it to happen physically, but the psychological effect is so much worse. Like it
It leave
prolongs.
it leaves a imprint.
Yeah,
And with you sitting in it for a year,
that's part.
you probably didn't fully process it. It took a little while, and when you did start to process it, you process it in bits, in pieces. It was like a jigsaw puzzle when you actually started to process it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I look, I've done been through so much. I'm gonna tell you one of the traumatic experiences that I've had, that was somewhat spiritual and that was so deep that it took me. I left out of that trauma and actually ran into another piece of trauma after that, and that's the sad part. But the traumatic experience that happened to me and my son was living in this house in Detroit, and one of my girlfriends, I've been hearing her for this whole time telling her kid that he should not take her car and not tell her where he's going because
Okay.
she had a girlfriend who has a friend who has a son. That son took the car. They found the car and no kid. So I've been hearing her tell her son this for months. But what I didn't know is that the house that I was living in was a two-family flat, and I had somebody living downstairs. I lived upstairs. Now here I am. I'm an activist. I used to go leave out the house in the middle of the day. In the morning, I wouldn't come home till like midnight, even later, because I was always connected to everything that was going on. Late night,
Right.
everything. Every organization, every event, I was connected to everything. And some of them would go late in the evenings after work. And this one particular holiday, I went to church and I wasn't feeling right. I came out of church and I was like, something just don't feel right. So I went over her house and we started reading the Bible together. So I
Hmm.
said, I just don't feel right. Can I just spend the night? She said, yeah, you and your son can spend the night. So we did. The next morning, I still had on the same thing I had on yesterday. I went to go check on another girlfriend. And all of a sudden, I got a phone call. I ignored it. The second phone call came through. I picked up the phone and they said, this person was my brother. He said, look here, I don't know what's going on. He said, but at your house, we got police. There's police and there's police and ambulances all around your house.
Wow.
And I said, what? He said, yes. I don't know what's going on, but you need to find out what's going on. So when I called the guy who lived downstairs, he said, this was on Good Friday now. This was the day after Good Friday, which is
Hmm.
Saturday. He said there was a dead body under the porch.
I'm
And
sorry. Say that again.
it was a dead body under the porch. It had been there so long that it had wilted, and they said it looked like a kid. And I went back to my girlfriend, and I remember what she said the little boy had on that was missing, and it was the same little boy.
Oh my God.
So yes, so the kid, I guess, got into some issues. He got shot in the head. He ran up in there. And he bled to death. He's been under there for 6 months. In this particular house, I had been sick off and on throughout the winter. So that means that every time I turn on the heat, I would smell. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't
Oh
even know
my
it was that.
God.
And people, I would be so totally sick, and people would be bringing me food, everything. And my son was like, "My mother is throwing up like the Exorcist," all this other stuff. So when that happened, and I found out it was the same kid I had been hearing about, I was like messed up for a while.
That's enough to mess anybody up.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
yes. Trauma.
Wow.
Now that's trauma.
That's some trauma for you.
That's trauma. And
The
go ahead.
the first bit of trauma I ever had like that, I was 8 years old, living in Houston. I was going to the kitchen to get something to drink, and I hear some arguing outside in the courtyard of the apartments that we lived in. This guy was drunk, and he was telling his girlfriend that lived like directly across the courtyard from us, "Baby, I want you back." And I could hear her telling him, "Look, I'm moving on with my life. I don't want you anymore." And the man said, "If I can't have you, nobody will." She shut the door, locked it. He saw her silhouette and shot her, and I saw it. I saw it, and four more kids in the apartment complex saw it. and
Like,
they were all around my age.
so it's like when you experience certain things like that, I don't know if you know anything about being an EMT. So I went to school to be an emergency medical technician, and they always talk about how when traumatic experiences happen, that everybody's supposed to go to a debriefing. I have yet to see a debriefing. Have you ever thought about that? Did anybody else know that you witnessed that? Because that right there, that's trauma. And through the briefing, they're supposed to take you through some classes to assist you with that. Everybody who actually witnessed it and everybody who came on the scene to help with that situation is supposed to go through a debriefing. Have you
I
went to
never knew that.
psychology? Yeah, yes,
I never knew
yes.
that.
I remember that. Have you ever went to a therapist after that experience as a kid?
I never went after a kid because a lot of that stuff I suppressed.
Did you talk to your
But
parents about it?
yes, I did. I did. And they just, my mom, she just held me. She's like, oh my God. And, after a few days, I really like suppressed it. It wasn't until like years later that it came up again. It came up with some other things that I had been dealing with. So I was like, wow. I really didn't seek help and get closure. And I'm a big advocate for people and their mental health. Please, I can't stand when black people say, we don't do that. We pray. Yeah, we pray. But faith without works is dead. Go see somebody.
Go see
Please,
a therapist.
go
That's
see
right.
somebody. Go see somebody. Please. I got mine on speed dial. Go see somebody.
Right, right, right. And that's so sad because a lot of people don't realize if we don't face the trauma and get healing from it and we sweep it up under the rug, it's going to come back later. And it
Okay.
comes back most of the times when we least expect it. We least
That's
expect it.
exactly what happens. Yes.
Now, as being an African American man dealing with traumatic experiences, it's like a stigma or like a problem within our community to go get therapy, especially you being a man. Did you ever go get help, or what would you say to the person who's experiencing some of those traumatic experiences now?
Even after I went through everything I went through, I knew my one of my doctors actually said you have every symptom of PTSD.
Mm,
And I know I did. And I said, I don't care what nobody thinks. I need help. But at first, I said, I'm not going to let this beat me. I suppressed it again. And
okay,
it wasn't until the start of 2019, I said, I'm going to go talk to somebody because I can't do this by myself.
right,
And ever since then, I'm a huge proponent. I'm a advocate. I push, hey, go talk to somebody. Don't do nothing to hurt yourself. Don't do nothing to hurt those you love. But don't do nothing to hurt nobody.
right,
Go talk to someone.
right. Because how else are you going to stay in the fight if you don't know how to fight?
Exactly. Exactly. And I
That
tell you,
part.
and I tell you, you was freaked out by the first things I told you. Yeah, yeah. You ain't even got to the other stuff yet.
I know people don't realize, they think everything is glitz and glamour. They never know who the person is who's actually on the podcast, on the TV, on the news, or on the book until they hear the story. We don't.
That's right.
Nobody knows how we got. You got into the
Right.
places that you got into, or what it took to become you.
Right.
Because I tell people all the time, you don't want it. You don't know.
Oh,
You don't
oh
know what
God,
I had to
no.
go through to get here.
If you count up the cost, please count up the cost. Don't ever want what another person has. Count the cost up fully because trust me, you don't want to pay it.
Right. You don't know what they had to go through to get to where they are today. I remember this one person said, Shiny, you've been through so many things. I don't even think I would have been able to survive through it. I just look, to God be the glory. You know how they say to God be the
Amen.
glory.
Amen.
To God be the
Amen.
glory. Oh my goodness. So tell me more about this book and who is your target audience when it comes to the book? Do you have a copy of the book you can hold up?
The Fight of My Life. You can get this book on Amazon. It's not a long book, but it's very impactful. It's very impactful. I try to reach out to people who've gone through traumatic experiences, whether it be through car wreck, injury, marriage. I try to reach out to a lot of people because you never know. We're all in some sort of fight, and my job is to let you know that you're gonna win. You gotta stay the course. You can't give up. You gotta stay focused and tune out the white noise. You're gonna win. Gonna win. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Sorry. So when
Now,
you
what
was
did you
going
say?
I'm so sorry. So what I was saying is like a lot of people don't understand like going through these traumatic experiences, what has happened, and that it's been a process on the mental. But when you have went through these traumatic experiences, what is it that you held on to help you get through it? Because we know that you can fight and you can stand get through anything that you went through. But what did you hold on to?
I held on to the fact that just like everything that like okay, I use the analogy that of food. Everything has an expiration date. I knew that what I was going through had an expiration date. And I knew that my strength, my faith, my determination to beat it was going to be stronger than the time frame of what I was going through. So that's what I held on to get me through this. Like this is only temporary.
Okay.
I'm in this fight. I'm in this fight. And I will tell anybody else that you're in this fight. Whether it's a mother that may have just lost her job and she's the sole provider for her kids, it's somebody that might have got told that, hey, you got stage 4 cancer and we don't see you coming through it. Stay in the fight.
I like that because the word says don't get weary. They always say don't get weary in well doing. You
Yes.
know, like
And
we
this,
get
go ahead.
go ahead. You go ahead.
I said, and the analogy that I took was this. I heard everything every doctor said. I felt like when I was going through the doctors, I was going to 4 different doctors.
Okay.
And I felt like the woman with the issue of blood.
Mm.
Nobody could help her, but they didn't have a problem taking her money. And that was me. Every time I'm going to the doctor, they giving me this, they giving me that. Nothing helps. And I'm getting these bills, $160, $134. One doctor billed me for saying hello.
Oh wow.
I got a $36 bill from a doctor for a hello.
Oh
Are you
wow.
serious, man? I'm so, I can't make this up. I got a $36 bill for a hello. I didn't know hellos could be so expensive.
Wow. Just hello. That right there. So let me ask you, when you go through experience like hello, or you go through some of the experiences that you have went through in these traumas and you knew that it was probably something dealing with God, maybe disobedience, things I wasn't walking in fully. I mean, what is it like? Where are you at now with that? And how did you get there? What was the transition? What was the lessons learned within that?
Oh my God. Ooh, where do I start? Let's see. With me getting sick in 2012, and here we are in 22, almost 10 years later. What did I learn? God had me in a place of total dependency. He had to get my attention because my attention wasn't, I wasn't, I was putting everything else before him. I was
Mm,
trying to put work. I was working like crazy. And a part of when the enemy told me he was going to destroy my ministry, I had Sundays off. And my pastor had put me over a group of men where we were starting a men's ministry. I had a coworker that went into the supervisor even after we had bid jobs already, bid for our shifts. And about a month and a half into this, now mind you, it's supposed to be locked in for an entire year once you do this. He goes in, he whines and complains. He only wanted to get those shifts so he can have time to go to NFL games. Well, I'm the lowest man on the pole with the days off that he wanted. He go in, pitch a fit, and then he gets them. I said, look at the enemy working. But even though I had to work on Sundays, I was still going to church. I was going to church on my lunch break. You make time for what you want to make time for.
Right.
I was going in, I was catching half the sermon, having them record the rest, and I would listen when I get home.
Wow.
But I
Wow.
was putting so much focus on on the job. I was putting more focus on other things that it was like I was like, oh, have you completely forgotten me? I tell you what, let me allow some things to happen to where you're gonna have no choice but to come back to me. You'll have no choice but to come back. But in the
Wow.
process, I learned who I was. I learned that I was stronger than I ever knew. My prayer life strengthened. My prayer life strengthened so much during all of this. I don't think I ever prayed so much and stayed under attack so much. But now I'm equipped to. Now then I was equipped to fight it.
Wow. 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 It's so funny that we're in a society today. Now that COVID is over, we understand like it was a shift. It shifted us to rethink about ourselves and what we were going through. And still today, we have a lot of people that put their employment before God. And what do you say to people like that? Like, we take on these mundane tasks and assignments from employers who don't even want to do their own dirty work, but
They ain't
we're
got
the
nothing to
ones
do.
who's doing, we're the ones who's doing their dirty work for a paycheck. And it comes between morals, ethics, and values of where's our boundary of what we would do to make money. You get what I'm saying? So
You
go ahead.
you become a slave to it after a while. You find yourself doing any and everything for the pat on the back, the attaboy, a couple dollars raised. But what really did it get you? What did it get you? So um, I would say in the pandemic showed a lot of people something. When the pandemic hit and a lot of people lost their jobs, that was God's way of getting everyone's attention. He allowed some stuff to happen. Okay. Oh, so oh, okay. You more dependent on that job. Now you laid off. Now who you dependent on?
That part.
Because a lot of us made it by God's grace. A lot of us never missed a beat when the pandemic hit. A lot of people were still graced. You were graced. And he told the apostle Paul about that thorn in his side, my grace is sufficient.
Mm, I've heard
And a
that
lot
twice
of
this week.
a lot of us were graced.
Mm, mm, mm.
A lot of people figured out if we are in a season where now I'm in total dependence on you.
When I think about COVID and what we went through as far as COVID, I don't think that people are really taking it serious. You get what I'm saying? One,
They're not.
taking it serious to the fact that you have grace where you still are living because many did not make it.
That's right.
Two, that we just lived through another traumatic experience within the US, and it was connected to everywhere, to other countries. So that was trauma. And taking it serious enough to not cause that same issue on other people's lives. So meaning that if I get sick and I get COVID, I don't go out there to get other people sick. I need to take it as serious enough to realize not only does it affect my life and everybody else's life, and that it was also a reset. It was definitely a reset. It was a shift.
Most definitely.
Um, it was definitely a shift. There were so many people that did not make it through COVID. So that means that we are grateful to still be here. Now, when it comes to the traumatic experiences, everybody who is in America, everybody who has experienced COVID should be going to counseling.
Yes.
I said it flat out, point blank.
I I have friends that told me they had COVID. I've known people that got it twice, and they told me how ravaged their lungs were. I have another friend that still hasn't regained her sense of taste. Yeah. For some people, they told me all I had was a runny nose. So you were blessed. Other people, they didn't make it. But one thing I did, I tried to keep my family lifted up, my friends lifted up, because you don't know, you have no clue. But the one thing I did, I wanted to plead the blood of Jesus over my family members and my friends, my church family. Because we don't know.
Yeah,
We don't
we
know.
don't know. By chance, did you catch COVID?
No, thank God, no.
Thank God.
Thank God, no, no.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was one of the ones who caught COVID. My son had it first. He caught it from his dad. He went up his dad's house, caught COVID, came home, and I'm being mom, trying to take care of the
Take
baby.
care
That's
of
what I
him, and
do.
then you,
He ain't even a
yeah,
baby. He a big boy, but I'm taking care of him, and I eventually caught COVID after him. And every time someone calls me to talk about COVID or how to get through it, the first thing I say is, "This is your faith walk." So let me attest to that right now. This is definitely your faith walk. You're going to this is the conversation between you and God. Because out of this right here, there's nobody that's going to be able to save you but God.
but God,
So you got to hold on to something and have that conversation with God.
um,
That's my remedy.
yeah. And a part of my one of the chapters in my book is getting fit for the fight.
Mm.
And how do we get fit for the fights ahead? We stay in the Word. We stay in the Word. You wash yourself in the Word. You stay on your knees. You pray. You're constantly talking to God, and you need to just get time, and you just need to get quiet. This is the time to get sound instruction because the fight is coming. And somebody might be wondering about the boxing gloves on here. Like I said, I was trained to box by a world champion boxer. Boxing is one of my favorite sports. And I said, when I wrote the book, I said I wanted to fuse two things that I know how to do, writing with boxing. And I knew that the fight that I went through kind of seemed like a boxing match. In a boxing match, at times, if you got two well matched boxers, you'll have ebbs and flows. And life will do that to you. Life will do the same thing. You'll have ebbs and flows. There's times you're going to be sitting on the highest peak of the mountain. There's times you're going to be in the valley. But that's life. It's how you come through life. Because life will punch you in the jaw. Life will have you on the canvas. But the question I ask to everyone watching is, will you have the strength enough to get up and stay in the fight?
Man, I don't that was poetry right there. Like I think we might need to cut this video, get some excerpts and take that piece out and keep that and kind of like
Do that.
pin it because it's not always the fight, it's how you fought. It's how you fought and if you still stood when you came through it. And that shows your strength. That's God in action right there. That's
Now,
God in action right there. It's how
you
you
ready?
come out of it.
Are you ready to see God in action?
He asking
Are
y'all,
you
y'all
really?
ready to see?
Are you ready? Are y'all ready, willing to see God in action?
Mm,
Okay. You allow me to speak and tell it?
go ahead.
Okay.
I'm gonna
So
remove
when we
myself.
When we last left off, I told her about me going through getting the tumor removed. You can stay on, it's fine. Um, and when I got the tumor removed, I was off work for, I went off work at November the 7th. I didn't go back to work until hmm, January 27th of 2013. And I had to beg to go back then. Was I physically ready to go back to work? No, I wasn't. Matter of fact, I still had staples in my lower back. Yeah, still had staples in my lower
This
back.
is from the spot, from the lungs,
That's right.
the
I still
tumor.
had, that's right. I still had staples in my lower back. So I'm begging to go back. My doctor was really against it, but I was like, look, man, I need to go back. I got bills falling behind. I've seen people fired on FMLA. It's a joke. I'm trying to go back to work. So I had this talk with him. He said, I'm gonna sign off, but you can't go back until a certain time. So later that day, my wife and I had lunch, and I'm taking her back to her job. And let me show you how angel work. I got bills behind. This homeless lady walked up to my truck. She said, sir, I don't mean to bother you, but I haven't eaten. And could you at least give me $2? Now I'm catching and going through it. But I'm like, you know what? I said, darling, $2 ain't gonna help. I think I had like 7 to 9 dollars right there. I just gave it to her. I said, here you go. Go get yourself something to eat.
Mm.
And I should have been able to see her from the walkway between the drop for where I dropped my wife off at and to see her. I never saw her again. Never saw her again. And she wasn't walking fast, but I never saw her again. But let me show you how God worked on my behalf. I got phone calls. All my creditors found out what was going on. And they started moving payments on the back end, giving me like 4 to 6 months to catch up and get myself together. And to make things even better, I go to the mailbox. Why I have a check for $500 in the mailbox, sitting there waiting for me.
You have to give to receive.
It was a seed that I had sowed and forgot about the seed. I had sowed the seed probably like 8 to 9 months earlier and forgot about it. And that seed came up in my time of need. I was favored, and that seed came up. So I go back to work. I'm in tremendous amount of pain because I'm still having back spasms.
Right.
Had to leave work one day, and I was leaving work going to therapy. Leaving work going to therapy. So I'm there. I had a couple of coworkers that thought I should be doing the same type of work they're doing now that I'm back at work, but I could barely bend over. And so one pitched a fit, tried to get pitch a stink. I said, you know what? Just let me do what I can do. I'm trying to do this job that I know physically I can't do. I'm coming to get some tools, and this is a day that changed my life. February 27, 2013, 7:15 a.m. I'm going to get some tools to do this particular job, and there was alcohol on a dull gray floor, and I didn't see it, and I slipped. My knees hit the concrete, and five of my coworkers behind me said they could hear the vertebrae snapping in my spine. I'm laid on the floor screaming because it felt like in the moment that I heard that crunch, it felt like somebody threw diesel on me and lit me on fire. I could hear somebody say, he's faking. Another coworker said, you can't fake what we just heard. Roll 911 right now. And I'm screaming because by this time I can't feel my legs. I can't feel nothing. The ambulance comes, luckily because we were on airport property. They get me on that board. They strap me all in, get me in. A supervisor was like, just hang on, I'll be at the hospital here in a little bit. They get me to the hospital, they get me in a CT scan, and they just like, we okay, we'll let you know what's going on. Just relax. I'm sitting in the ER probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Nobody's still coming in yet. All of a sudden, I have to use the restroom, but I can't feel my legs. So how is this gonna work? I'm screaming for a urinal. Okay. While screaming for a urinal, my left leg started twitching. Then my right leg started twitching. I pulled myself up, and it was the most painful pull that you could ever go through. And I walked along the wall, grabbing the wall so I wouldn't fall to go to the restroom. By the time I came back, three nurses was in my little room, and they all had the same look on their face because the doctor and my people came in all at the same time. They said, "We don't know how to tell you this, but you broke your back. The problem is the vertebrae you broke, you ain't supposed to be up. Mr. Lewis, you ain't even supposed to be walking. How is this possible?" I said, "Look at the power of God." They said, "Don't get up. Please don't get up. We still trying to figure this out." Now, these people have been in the medical profession a total combined years, all of them probably like 70 years combined with everybody that was in the room. And they were still shaking their heads like, how did he get up?
Mm.
I stayed in the, I stayed in the hospital a week before they sent me home. So they just assumed that the breaks were going to heal on their own because they felt like I was young enough. Didn't know that I was getting worse the whole time. Well, fast forward a few months. By this time, I'm confined to a bed. Can't really get up, can't really do anything. I'm totally dependent on people to help me. May 20th of 2013, I made up in my mind that I'm going to walk, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to let this beat me. Mind you, I just went through being up for 4 straight days. I was up for 4 straight days. No sleep. Four straight, 4 straight days with no sleep. I get up to put on my pants and my legs totally collapsed. And immediately my mother and my sister said, all I could say for like 30 minutes was, I can't feel nothing. My legs are gone. My legs are gone. By this time, the ambulance came. They loaded me up, took me to the hospital, and the neurosurgeon that I was dealing with said um, paralysis had set in. And even if we do your surgery, which is spinal fusion, which is needed, we still don't think that you'll ever walk. By this time, I'm freaking out. I'm like crying. I'm in the room crying. I'm like, God, this can't be it. This cannot be it. And so I had to have a Hezekiah moment. And I heard what the doctor said, but I had to pull a Hezekiah in that moment and turn my face to the wall. And me and God had to have a talk. And I said, God, you got more work for me to do, and I can't do it from a wheelchair. I got too much I got to do to be in a wheelchair. And the doctor came in. The little young resident told me, he said, you don't have nothing to worry about. The surgeon was a great doctor, horrible bedside manner. We do these every day. We're going to take care of you. So they said they initially scheduled my surgery for that Friday. I came in on a Monday. I said, no, you won't. You're doing my surgery tomorrow. And they said, are you sure? I said, yes. Go get my mother and bring me a pen and I'll sign off on it now. Even though the doctor said I would not walk, I had an 8.5 hour surgery, split open with 75 staples in my back when they sewed me up. I couldn't be raised above 30 degrees in a hospital bed, so I'm basically laying flat. I couldn't have no food. I couldn't have no water. for like 4 days.
No
I was
food.
in
Wait a minute. No.
no food, no water for
Wait a
like
minute. The
4 days.
surgery. Wait. The surgery. Wait a minute. First of all, wait. Wait. Let's go back.
Yes.
You had a dream. Let's go back. You had a
Come on.
dream that the
Yes.
devil had you outside of your body on top of your bed while you was looking down at you and your wife. That Satan told you on the dresser that he was gonna kill you, he was gonna
Hmm.
kill your ministry, and he was gonna kill your marriage.
That's what he said.
Okay. So after that happened, you ended up in a situation to where you had to go to the hospital because you weren't feeling well. Well, they
That's right.
found where actually they could not find anything wrong with you.
Yeah.
Then
They
turn
could.
around, they couldn't find nothing. They
They
sent you
found.
back
They
home.
found. Yeah. They couldn't
They
figure
said,
out
"Oh,"
what was going
they
on.
couldn't figure out
Right.
what was wrong. You went back, found out you had a spot, which was actually a tumor on your lung. Okay, you find out you have a tumor on your lung, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had to do surgery
It
because of the tumor.
moved. Yeah, it moved.
It
Mm-hmm.
moved.
Mm-hmm.
And you ended up where you had went back to work after this. Is that correct?
That's right.
You went back to work. You know you wasn't supposed to go back to work. Let's talk about that part. You knew you
Mm-hmm.
wasn't supposed to go back to work, but you begged to go back to work because all you was thinking about was money, how you had bills to pay. You slip on some alcohol while you were at work, right? Which
That's
actually
right.
broke your spine.
That's right.
So you go to your job. I'm sorry, you go to the hospital. They and you walk and they tell you that you're gonna have issues with walking.
Mm.
So wait a minute. This is a lot right here. Like, because
I'm telling you.
the physical
I'm
pain is
telling you.
one
Most
thing.
people couldn't make it. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like the physical pain is definitely one thing because pain is excruciating. Especially pain like that. Like you broke your back. Like, come on, slipping on some alcohol. You heard it pop and it tore. And then you went back. Oh my God. First of all, my face is just tore up thinking about it. But the mental state of that, you know what I'm saying, of everything that you've experienced. You had some great misses, some great gifts within there. Like when you sold the $7 and you got the $500 for the bills. But yet and still through the process you were still being disobedient. You get what I'm saying? Because and a lot of us do that because we put the job before ourselves.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? And a lot of us get there. And it's like we're so caught up in the bills got to get paid. We're so caught up in this has to be done. But we're not thinking like if I'm not here, the job is gonna still be there. They're gonna get somebody else.
I'm trying. I'm trying to tell you.
If I'm not here, them bills are gonna be bills. Period. So now you're in a hospital and just came out of this surgery. 8 hour surgery.
8.5.
8.5 hour surgery for your back. Like the whole mental process of the whole thing with the lessons that needed to be learned within it was deep. It's deep. It's deep, 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 deep. But the mental part, I don't think that people really understand the mental things that you go through when you experience traumatic situations in this aspect. Starting from the
Because
root,
you.
from when the beginning,
Yeah.
when the devil said, "I'm coming to take you out."
Yeah. And then the fact that I went through two major surgeries 7 months apart. 7 months apart. Yeah. Here's the crazy thing. So they did the surgery. They come in my room and they said, Mr. Lewis, gotta ask you some questions. So by this time, I'm at a teaching hospital. So I have like 10, 15, maybe 17 doctors in my room. And they will always come in during law and order when I'm right about the time I'm about to find out who the killer was. And so they turned my TV off. So now I'm gonna be up all night trying to watch that episode again. Let's see who the killer was. So they asked me this question. They said, "Have you been out of the country?" I said, "No." They said, "Have you had coworkers that went out of the country?" I said, "Yes." So where'd they go? I said, "Mexico, Belize, El Salvador." Yeah, okay, good. They said, "Did any of them ever contract TB?" I said, "Yes." Did any of them get people sick at the workplace? I said, "Yes." They said, "And that's what happened to you, except that you have the rarest form. Most people get it and it goes to their lungs. You have the rarest form that did not happen in the United States. It went to your spine. What happened to you is you had Pott's disease, and a lot. And this is something we see in older people. This don't happen, and they don't. And a lot of them don't even recover enough to walk. But we're thinking that you're gonna be okay." I said, "I know I'm gonna be okay." So they said they didn't know there was an infection in my spine when they went in it. They didn't even know it. When they went to do the surgeries, when they found everything, and they told me, they said it's a good thing your legs went out when they did. Had they not have gone out, the infection would have went to your brain and killed you. God was covering me the whole time. The whole time.
Like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. Oh my goodness. Like, oh my goodness. Like, oh my goodness. Like, what if you would have given up on the fight?
I couldn't give up because I was determined. I was determined. And even after they pull like four of those liter bags of that substance of that infection off of me. And they were like, "We have to give you 10 pills every day while you're here. And we have to give you stuff through your IV." And I had never been that sick in my life when they started putting it through my IV. But I had to let it run its course until they had to stop putting it in my IV. And then I just had like 10 pills. And by that time, the room would just be spinning around like a disco ball or whatever. So by this time, I'm in the hospital. June 14th, the day before my actual birthday, they send me to this rehab hospital. So, okay. I get to the rehab hospital. They tell me, you'll be here probably like 60 to 90 days. I said, "For what?" "To really get you walking again." I said, "How long you say I'm gonna be here?" 60 to 90 days. I said, "What's today's date?" They said June 14th. I said, "I'm going home before the 4th of July." They said, "Excuse us, that sounds good." I said, "No, I have faith and I'm about to put the work in. I'm going home before the 4th of July." So every day in therapy, I had 2 a day therapy sessions. I made it a goal to make this many steps. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I said, "I'm going to the nurse's station." They said, "Oh, that's cute. That's right there." I said, "I ain't say that nurse's station. I mean the one on my hall. I'm walking to it." They were like,
Mm.
"What?" I said, "Yeah, you thought this was a joke? I'm determined to get out of here. I'm not gonna be here. Y'all say I'm gonna be in here 60 to 90 days? I don't think so. I'm going home before the 4th of July. I will have barbecue with my family." So I worked hard, I grinded, did what I needed to do. And the whole time I was able to minister to somebody else while I was in there. And I was one of the youngest people in the rehab. I had 75 and 80-year-old men and women there. And they looked at me like, "Baby, why are you here?" I'm like, "You know what? I'm here to put a smile on your face. And we're going to get through this together." We would all be crying in rehab because it hurt so bad. But I told them, "We're going to win. We're going to get through this." I was encouraging them, and I was barely putting one foot in front of the other. And so they came in and told me on June 29th, "Mr. Lewis, you going home." I said, "What day am I going home?" They said July 2nd. I said, "I told you I'll be home before the 4th of July. Going home."
Wow. Now, if that's not a testimony, like that is so super duper amazing. Like, woo, that was a lot.
I
Look,
ain't even done.
right. And to get the rest of that, I'm pretty sure it's in your book where
It
you're
is.
gonna have the rest of it in your book. When I tell you, like, everyone should be able to go and get this book. If you have been through a certain situation, whether it's a traumatic situation, you went through TB, when you went through COVID, anything that you went through when it has been so traumatic that it affects your body physically, like, you need to go get this book. You need to watch this podcast again to listen to this man of God of how he endured and stayed in the fight. Like this, like, wait a minute. You know what? I'm just going to let me go over some things that we talked about today.
Come on.
Whew, like, oh my God, we talked about grace. Uh, um, like, we talked about grace. We talked about the physical workplace, the spirits, and the marriage. That's where you were attacked at. We talked about the mind games that's played on you when you go through traumatic situations and how you had to reshift that. We talked about how you had to stay focused within the fight. We talked about spiritual warfare. That was when you told about how the devil and his henchmen had you outside of in your dream, outside of your body, looking down, and told you what he was going to do. He said, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill your marriage, and I'm gonna kill your ministry." That right there was just like, that's trauma. That's trauma. I probably would have had to still been in counseling for that. Like, that part right there.
Yes.
How you went to work and other people had TB, and then you found out it was a tumor. We talked about suppressing trauma. We talked about all of that. We talked about staying in the word, staying on your knees, staying prayed up, getting quiet and getting to yourself. We talked about FMLA and what FMLA does. And one thing that, I got out of this is that we have a problem in this society where we think that we can surpass things and not think about where we are, like in this present
Right.
time. So
That's
that
right.
means that so they say God chastens the ones that he loves. And when you don't pay attention, like, he will get your attention and he will sit you down.
Yes,
And
he
a lot of
will.
times, yes, and a lot of times in that process, we're so used to getting back up and going. We're pushing ourselves when we need to be sitting down there and understanding what we're going through, processing it, and getting back to that connection with God so we can understand what it is that He's trying to tell us.
In that time of sitting down, I sat down so long because I had to be on work comp, and it was actually a time to reflect.
That
And I said,
part.
"What
That's
lesson? What lessons did you learn?"
right.
And the lesson that I learned was I was just a number on a job. You could give all your all to a job, and in the end, you're just a number. Because I tell you what, get sick or die, and I guarantee you they're gonna have somebody else filling your spot. Give them a few days. They'll find somebody qualified to do your job. If not, they'll train Curious George to do your job. You gave your all to somebody that wouldn't give a nickel for you.
Whew, well, there you have it. That was, that's how I saw the lesson. That's how I saw the lesson. You went through a lot, and I hate that you had to go through the things that you went through, but I'm so grateful that you're able to go through it and still stand, because you did talk about that. It's not always about the fight, it's how you come through it and how you stood after it. And so I hate that you had to go through what you going through. But I'm so glad that God used you in order to help somebody else through that trauma, through somebody else stay in the fight. Because we really need it, especially at this time, through going through COVID, Omicron, and whatever other names that it has. We need that. And so I'm so grateful that you were able to share that with us. And I would like for you to give the name of your book again and where they
Uh,
can
the,
find the book at.
the name of my book is The Fight of My Life, and you can find this on Amazon. Please, I welcome the support. By all means, this book will bless your life and it will help you out in some of the roughest times of your life. And when I say that the Holy Spirit was on me at the beginning of 21 to write this book, Every day for like 5 months, I heard write the book. Huh? What book? Write the book. People need to hear your story. Write the book. Don't nobody want to hear about my story. Don't be disobedient. Write the book. Somebody's gonna get their breakthrough by listening to what you have to say. Write the book. So every day, write the book. Write the book. I ain't moved. Finally, he started to send people toward me. Hey, you wrote that book yet? I'm looking like, huh? All right, Lord, I'm gonna write this book. I don't
That's
know
how
where
you
to
work.
start. I don't know where to start. But then he started either go to YouTube. That's what and so I found the template in Microsoft Word and followed the template and went to work.
Wow, that is super duper amazing. I'm so glad if you that you wrote that book. If you are out there and you are suffering from any type of disability, you went through any type of traumatic experience that you need some help, or you want to read a book, a good read to learn how to fight what you're going through, go look for this book. Go find this book because what you have to do is you have to learn how to stay in the fight. We have to learn how to endure the processes of the things that we go through, learn from them so we won't repeat those things and to understand what they are so we can teach the next person. One of the
That's
lessons it sounds like you said you learned this from this story is that the job on the job that we're just a number. So
you're
even
a
when we're
number.
not there, there's going to be somebody else to pick up that mantle for that job and to keep working.
You,
It's going to keep on going.
I guarantee you, if you die, they may send you flowers, but I guarantee you, they gonna have the help wanted sign for your position
The next that day or that same day,
that day.
that day.
Oh,
So and
he died. Oh, he died. Fill his position right now.
right, that part. Oh my God. I just want to say thank you so much, man of God. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for coming on here to talk to us about staying in the fight. Again, if you are going through some traumatic experiences, you going through some experiences when it comes to disability. A lot of people don't have people to talk to about disabilities. Reach out to Patrick. Reach out to him on Facebook. Go look for his book on Amazon called Stay in the Fight. That book is here. It's in stores for you now. You see the book over here. Go check it
The
out.
fight, the fight of
That's
my
right.
life.
That's right. So go look for it. And thank you again, Mr. Lewis, for coming on here to talk to us about that book and how you stayed in the fight. When I tell you, I'm still in awe. I'm still in awe of all the things that you went through this whole process. It was from beginning. Oh my goodness, like you are a walking miracle. You are definitely
I,
a walking miracle.
I say it all the time, and I just want to leave a message with the viewers, and I want to let everybody know that hey, life is going to happen at some point. None of us know. None of us know the day that life is going to say, you know what, I'm going to strike you with cancer, or I'm going to put your child in a situation where he may be facing 15 to life. Life is going to happen. It's mind games. The enemy is trying to attack you. You're going to go through some things. You're going to get knocked down. But do you have the strength enough to get up and keep swinging?
Mm,
Got to fight. If you stay in the fight, I guarantee you got the best corner man. Those of us who are true believers, the best corner man we could ever have is the Holy Spirit. He don't give bad fight advice. We fight on our knees.
that part.
We fight on our knees. We fight with the word and we slip. You gotta slip, slip. You gotta slip because I guarantee you, the enemy is constantly carrying out a fight plan to take you out. And how we gonna take him out? We That's a lot of prayer time. That's a lot of turn off the TV. That's a lot of turn off Facebook. You gotta get off social media. Turn the phone off, and you gotta get in your war room, and you gotta go to war because
Jeez.
whether you know it or not, we all under attack, and everybody ain't in the same fight. But nonetheless, you're in a fight, and I guarantee you, you gotta throw your best blow because he gonna go for haymakers. But a lot of times the way he get us with body blows. You might be having some hell on the job or away with children. He ain't hit you in the head yet, but he just want to give you little body blows, soften you up. That way you're gonna drop your hands. That's when he hit you with something big. But we got to stay in the fight.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Lewis, for those words. Like we definitely needed those words, especially at a time like this to stay in the fight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we definitely will stay connected. Everybody again, can you show them that book one more time?
The fight of my life. How to
Go
get
check out the
not
book.
how to get up after being knocked down. Go to Amazon and pick it up. It will definitely bless your life. Reach out to me on Facebook. Hey, if you reach out to me on Facebook, you need to talk. I will definitely listen. Um, I'm looking to do some motivational speaking, some inspirational speaking. I want to just be able to be a blessing to those. I often go back to the rehab hospital where I was to actually tell people, hey, I was right where you were, and hey, if God bless me to make it, you can do the same.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Lewis, and we will stay connected.
Thank you.
Bear with
God
me one
bless.
more. God bless. Oh my God. What a shift. What a shift. Oh my goodness. Did y'all just hear the man of God talk about what he experienced, what he went through, and how he stayed in the fight? A lot of times we go through all these traumatic experiences. We lost our parents, we lost our brother, we lost our sibling. It could be grief. It could be something that you saw that was terrifying, something that you experienced that was terrifying. Maybe it was a disability, maybe it was a disadvantage, something that happened to you that caused you to shift. It's not always about the experience, it's about how you come out of it, who you hold on to when you go through it, and if you're going to stand when you come out of it. I'm telling you right here, right now, you are purpose. You were intended for something great. And in order to get to that purpose that you were intended for, you have to stay in the fight. He told you, stay in the fight. Stay in the fight. This book is truly he's truly a walking miracle. Go check the book out. Again, the name of that book is The Fight of My Life by Patrick Lewis. Go check out the book. Go check out the book. Watch this podcast over. Everything that he said from the devil meeting him at the house while he was in the bed in a dream to everything that happened afterwards. Go check it out. Another thing that he said that was so key. A lot of times we're so caught up in the bills, we're so caught up in everything else, but we don't realize that if we leave that job today, we're just a number. That somebody else is going to be in our space. You're just a number. We have to learn to put ourselves before the job. Put ourselves before the job. Lesson learned. Again, if you are that person, you experience disability or some traumatic experiences and want to know how to fight, go pick up that book. Learn how somebody else fought. Reach out to Patrick Lewis. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, audience, for watching. Again, this was another story of transformative shifts. And I just want to say thank you again. My name is Shayna Asby, the Family Life Coach, and we are out. Love you. Stay in the fight, y'all. Stay in the fight.